Okay, welcome back. We are in early Feb 1853. We last left off in late January, and a bit of a funny one. I had intended to load this video up today, which is, what day is it? Thursday. And yeah, I started doing this turn on Wednesday evening, but the game crashed whilst passing turn. Welcome to AG Games. They're a little bit buggy. I'm hoping it won't happen again, but it was kind of at the end of the video, really. It was about 40 minutes in. The turn hadn't completely passed. Yeah, and you can see that all the moves are saved. The good thing is, the game kind of saves the moment you sort of hit past turn, so everything that we had intended to do is already kind of in place. I'll still walk you through those things, because it would be instructive to do that. So we kind of left off with Omar Pasha's force still in pretty ropey shape. He had been in Varna. We had intended in early January to put him into the town in Varna to kind of winter quarters, to utilise the town, the quarters there, the kind of warmth and comfort and heat and access to sort of maybe better quality food and this kind of thing, to improve the morale and by virtue of that the cohesion and combat effectiveness of our force. But it was in such a ropey state, at the last moment I kind of actually pulled the force out of Varna, left him set on basically to retreat if engaged, to evade combat and retreat if engaged, which is exactly what he did. He fell back north into Constanta. The force had recovered somewhat, but he was still in kind of pretty bad shape. So we utilised the last sort of 4 weeks to put him into Constanta with a British force sitting outside the town. We thought this should be sufficient to kind of hold the Russians off, and we can utilise again the town, the warmth, comfort, food, and no doubt the comradeship of some of our subjects there, to kind of improve the morale of the troops and this sort of thing, give the officers time to take a bath and to enjoy some nice cuisine and to relax and to kind of get the troops back into fighting shape. And that really is important this time of year, because this is not in the mid-19th century you don't have prolonged periods of leave away from your force or anything like that, away from your command. So when you don't have leave, this kind of constitutes it. It does require periods of time, particularly when the force is kind of has experienced some degree of exposure and exhaustion on the basis of continuous movement and combat. Now, Omar Pasha's force is out of Constanta, and we have set this force. It's not completely recovered. You can see that some army corps still could probably do with another sort of fortnight rest. They've not completely organised, but they're in a much better position than they were, and I think this is good enough for government work. It's good enough for government work, and Omar Pasha is going to do just that. He's going to press south into Varna. The main body of the Russian force, comprised of 2 army corps, a division, and a kind of mixed range of forces, brigades, and so on, are based in Varna, and in 14 days he's going to press from Varna and then ideally into Plevna. There is another Russian force there. We don't know the exact character of that force. We know it's a force it's a regular force of some kind. The Russians have broken off another force and are besieging Sofia again. It does feel a bit like deja vu. I feel like we were kind of here in late July or early August or something, and it can easily be dispiriting to feel like that. But we're well placed now to move. In this game, the ETA really is an ETA, unlike other kinds of games where the ETA is an actual fact, just a mechanical time that that force will kind of mechanically arrive at that time exactly as predicted. In this game, forces can be delayed moving, and you'll get a notification of that. Especially fleets. Fleets are prone to that much more so than kind of land field commands, because to assemble dozens or hundreds of ships to conduct a kind of naval combat patrol can take some time, and it's an elaborate process. So fleets are often delayed, sometimes because of bad weather, but they're often delayed, and that was the case with the Black Sea Fleet. I think it would have completed its patrol by now, but it's been delayed. We've added some further kind of places for it to move to, so it's going to conduct a continued naval combat patrol in the Black Sea. It's going to move south into the Aegean, and then it's going to move back north to Constantinople. That ETA is 17 days, so that won't have happened this turn. It may even take slightly longer than that. And we're going to be sorting the raiding fleet in Smyrna, and that force is going to be moving into the trade box in the Mediterranean. So again, look to kind of spot and engage any Russian merchants that are active in the Mediterranean. The only combat reports we've received then really are our division in Tripoli has engaged this kind of raiding force, this insurgent force, twice, both of them successful. And the first engagement we did suffer slightly heavier losses. The second engagement we seem to kind of really broken them. It looks like there's really like less than 100 men left. So it's a very small force left, and this division now is going to be engaging in mopping up operations in Tripoli. In terms of eastern sort of Cyrenaica, we're holding fast. We're looking to keep these forces in place. They're only brigade-sized forces. Smaller forces do take more time to kind of increase your sort of military control in any given region. So we're going to keep these boys held tight to an offensive posture. In the event that any insurgents do kind of make a reappearance, we can't see where they are. They may have been destroyed entirely, but the plan is to just increase our military control in this region. It looks like the situation in Cyrenaica has stabilized now for the time being. Our plan in Aden was, of course, to sneak our field command into Sana, which is being besieged, and we're gonna hold tight there for another fortnight, just to try and improve the organisation, morale, and cohesion of our forces. We're running perilously thin on supplies, so I'm thinking that probably early March is the time that we're going to basically be making a move. We're going to kind of sally outside the town. We're going to engage the Yemeni forces, and we have done it before, and we're going to engage in a pretty desperate fight to kind of throw them back. Feels a little bit like the last roll of the dice. You've been playing a game which has really been based around buying time, hopping from foot to foot, and we're kind of running out of elbow room now. So this has to come off, really. But the basis for it coming off is as much organisation and cohesion as possible. This force has to be in the best possible position when it leaves this town to really, I mean, it has to defeat the Yemenis. If not, we're going to be in a really dangerous position, and what's left of our force, we're going to have to try and extricate from this region, because it's getting dicey there now. It's getting really sort of tricky. In the east, then, Rizas Pasha is in Erzurum. The Russian force, the cavalry division, I think, plus also a brigade, a line brigade, seems to be kind of stalled in Bitlis. My suspicion here is that this was not by design, that they've become kind of enclosed in by really heavy weather. One of the problems with heavy weather is it begins to limit where you can move, especially in mountainous terrain. If I try to move this Vashi Bazouk brigade into Erevan, you can see that the route that it takes is really elaborate. This would not be the case in the summer, and that's because the mountain passes are just unpassable. There's no way that we can move forces directly into Erzurum because of the character of the terrain. And my thinking is this is sort of what's happened to Krasnov's division, which was besieging Erzurum. So that's good news for us. We can kind of sneak in. I think it might be the only place he can move is north to Erzurum. He might just be completely out of supplies as well, which once you get to a certain point of being out of supply, you really can't move at all. Your forces start experiencing serious problems. I mean, starvation. You start getting men leave their command in droves, and the command sort of begins to fragment. Rizas Pasha, of course, is not activated when we need him to be, but Hüseyin Avni is. He's in command of an army corps. It's 9 days to Bitlis. My thinking is he would easily be able to deal with this force. We don't know what the state of this force is, but my guess is it's going to be very poor. And even if it's not, it's just a division and a brigade. And Hüseyin Avni is in command of an army corps, which is sort of 20 to 30,000 men. So that should be a done deal. Nothing else significant to report. I think that is everything to report. I'm not sure I mentioned in my last video, we have got an artillery regiment, I'm quite sure I did, that's being built up. We're going to be looking to increase the firepower of Rizas Pasha's command. I'm calling it Rizas Pasha's command. It is that for the time being. I think long term, we're going to obviously sort of look elsewhere. We have got another commander, of course, newly minted Lieutenant General Mehmed Rashid. Yeah, Mehmed Rashid. He's moving east, and he'll be linking up with Rizas' command in 2 days' time. Yeah, that is it. There's nothing else to report. Let me just flick through. I don't think there's anything else. Currency regulation. One really good thing with Industrial Revolution is it does open up some opportunities in terms of what we're allowed to build. It's an acknowledgement on the part, of the Ottoman sort of capitalist class. Really, the basis for a modern economy is going to be like large-scale manufactories that produce things on a kind of highly concentrated, rational basis, that will provide them with the kind of returns that they want. So that's a leap, but it's a qualitative step. Bear in mind that this will develop further. Other technologies will become available, which means that we can begin to build other kinds of factories that build things like synthetic dyes and this sort of thing. So there are a lot of other factories, like synthetic rubber and this sort of thing. These will become more available later on. But yeah, the basis for the Industrial Revolution is now laid. It's a kind of basic acknowledgement and a technological capacity to actually implement. I know we've already kind of done this in a limited experimental way with textile factories, and it's really just that applied. It's that principle just applied to other kinds of goods, and that's kind of in the bag now. That's secured. Nothing significant to report. 63 units of goods selling on the domestic market for 238. Our exports are set for this turn, and as our imports, which is centered around manufactured goods, steel for a period of time, and of course military supplies. There's no access to ammunition anywhere for the moment, but we do now have the technological capacity to build ammunition factories and arms shops and that kind of thing. Even though these things would be handy, there's no shortage of those things on the map. Our forces are not going to be running out of ammunition anytime soon or anything like that, so I think we're okay there. I think that's it. We did send out a kind of slew of diplomatic offers. I think by the looks of it, most of them have been kind of they were just state visits, just looking to kind of improve relations with Prussia, Britain, this kind of thing. The United States also. The United States is not quite a great power yet, but it's certainly an emerging power. It's emerging into a large transcontinental nation. And yeah, good relations would not be a bad shout. We have no conflicting interests or anything like that. It's a very it's a very young, kind of potent power, and if we can organise any kind of visit, send diplomats to them, we certainly will. We had spare diplomats to do so, and the idea would have been to kind of increase relations enough to try and get a commercial agreement. It looks like they've signed a commercial agreement with Japan, which is interesting. I wonder how long that'll last. Mind you, probably for many decades for the time being. But okay, turn saved. Everything's primed and ready. Please, game, don't crash. If it does, you will never see this video because I'll just play it again. Here goes. It didn't actually crash right away before. It kind of crashed. I think it only got to day 15, day 14 or day 15. It played through most of the turn. I presume the same kind of things will happen, and it wasn't massively eventful. There were some interesting developments. That said, I'm not sure if every turn always plays the same. I mean, I've played the same game many times, playing the same faction, and it is varied. It's a really good game for replayability. It tends to be varied from game to game. The Crimean War, of course, was the first photographed war. I tried to use some of the photographs in the kind of opening, the sort of flavour video, I suppose, for the beginning of the war. And I think they were overwhelmingly taken by Robert Fenton. Is it either Roger or Robert Fenton? He was a British photographer anyway that was in the Crimea. And it took about 3 to 400 photographs, I think. And yeah, they constitute the first photographs of warfare, I believe. And yeah, I get the impression he was fairly removed from the action, because there was a tendency in the 19th century for photographers to be very macabre and to photograph corpses. And this was the case in the American Civil War, of course. You look at photographs of the American Civil War and you think, good God, it's just endless photographs of corpses. And this was a feature of Victorian society anyway. They would take pictures of bodies that were animated, standing up as though they were alive with their family. It's very strange. But not the case in the Crimea. It may have just been that he had a particular sensitivity towards this, or that he was removed from action. And the most famous photograph was the Valley of the Shadow of Death, which is it's 2 photographs that feature a road covered in cannonballs. And it's quite funny because it was the first famous war photograph, and it may have been staged. There's quite an interesting YouTube video about this, and it's fairly legit and above board. It's a serious historian that developed a real interest in whether or not this photograph was staged. He wanted to know which one came first. The assumption being that the first photograph would have been the one where the road was covered in cannonballs, and the second one would have been where the road was cleared. But on closer examination, they couldn't determine anything from the shadows of the photographs or anything like that, because the quality of mid-19th century photographs was so poor. But they were able to determine that it was staged. Now, to be clear, of course, the road would have originally been covered in cannibals, and it's likely that Robert Fenton would have probably seen the road when it was first covered in cannibals. Perhaps he went to collect his photographic equipment. By the time he came back to the road, it had been cleared, because it makes sense to clear a road of cannibals, and troops would have done this to ensure that carriages and horses and stuff can move through without without the journey being interrupted by these kind of cannibals. And he may have been disappointed and presumably arranged for the bulls to be placed back on the road. And the reason they could figure this out is because all the foliage on the side of the road, the weeds and shrubs and small plants, were bent inward towards the road, which suggested that people had been going off the road, collecting cannibals, dropping them back on the road. So it's as kind of pointless YouTube videos go, it's one of the most interesting I've ever seen, and it's fairly brief. I think it might be on Vox or something like that, but yeah. Check it out if you're interested, it's very fascinating. There was another Crimean War photographer that's less well known, and sadly, I think most of his photographs have been lost. I don't know how. But he was Romanian, and he used the same method as Fenton, because at that time there were a couple of different methods of developing photographs, but he used the same method and principle. And he photographed the war in the Balkan Peninsula, which is really the war that we're depicting here, because there is no war in the Crimea. The British and the French are doing nothing, they're sitting on their hands. But he took, again, about 300 to 400 shots, I think. And one of them was the siege at Varna, which is not really a fort, but it was a town that was surrounded for a period of time by Russian forces, and they kind of besieged the Ottomans in the town. And he was with the Ottomans and in the town as shells, kind of, not really shells, sort of cannonballs, although shells were used. Incidentally, the Russian attack on Sinop was the first use of explosive shells, I believe, in warfare, and was a really real alarm to the Ottomans. And one of the Ottoman captains, officers, was actually British. This was not uncommon in the Ottoman armed forces. They would make use of kind of mercenaries and people that maybe had served in European armies and give them senior positions. And one of the officers in Sinop was a British officer that, of course, I suppose functioned as a bit of a spy for the Admiralty in Britain, and he reported back the effect of this Russian attack, and it was one of the things that piqued the interest of Britain, was the fact that it was thought that maybe the Russians might have tipped the maritime balance with these new shells. But anyway, I don't know. Maybe the British had developed something similar at the time. Here we go. That looks like Tripolitania basically dealt with then. That's the mopping up operation. Okay. Sea of Azov. Oh, very interesting. Okay. Yeah, okay, so 2 transports sunk. Yeah, we'll take that. Yeah, okay, so they were obviously very small kind of transports, but they were proper dedicated naval transport forces. It looks like the Russians and the French engaged in an action there. Okay. So I can tell you already. Where are we here? Yeah, I can tell you that already. What happened in the turn where the game crashed is completely different. Extraordinary. Only 100 casualties. It looks like the Russians broke off. They have a small cavalry brigade. Yeah, that's okay. It's fine. We're just using our Bashi bazookas, our regular forces. Day 13. Here's the big battle. That is a big battle. This is going to be one hell. Oh my god. Wow. Yeah, that was a really big battle. Okay, it's a victory. 18,000 casualties on our part, 3,000 horse, 57 guns, 30,000 casualties on their part, 8,000 horse, 24 guns, and yeah, in really poor weather as well. Christ, 6-7 regiments destroyed. It's not a wholesale victory. It's similar sized forces. Of course, the Russians get the advantage of combining their garrison force in Plevna with their field command, but yeah, a nice win. Total number of hits suffered on side, yeah, that's good. Yeah. 3 rounds of combat, that was a really, really good battle. Yeah, good job, Omar Pasha. They have 500 guns, about the same number of guns. Yeah, we took 4,000 prisoners by the looks of it. Excellent. And we're on day 14. Unlikely we'll have another battle, but we'll see. No, it looks like the Russians fell back. Okay, what's that? The 4th Plevna? Our war is just going to be battles. The battle is just going to be Plevna. 2 battles at Adrianople, 20 battles at Plevna, and then peace was declared. But yeah, the Ottoman the Ottoman war in the Balkans was depicted by a Romanian photographer, and he was in Varna, and he crossed the bridge. I think there's a bridge outside the town or the city. Crossed over to the Russian side during the siege. Russians didn't fire at him or anything, and he got to the Russian side and then photographed the town with the Ottomans in being besieged from the Russian side. And one of the artillery officers there would have been Tolstoy, one of the gunners at Varna, one of the Russian gunners, officer, I guess, because he was literate and educated. Yeah, would have been Leo Tolstoy. I couldn't remember his name, I think, in a previous video, but he was there. And I don't know if he may have even seen the photographer crossing the bridge. Okay, excellent. So the game didn't crash. We passed turn. That is a relief. Okay, the French have taken Varna. We are in a slightly weak position. That's okay though. We can sit tight. There's a really small Russian force there, but you know what happens if we go to a defensive posture. Kind of think we're going to have to just sit tight outside the structure's intact. Okay, well the British, that seems to be the remainder of the Russian force. We're not strong enough to push that, I don't think. How long would it take us? 4 days though. I'm going to think on that. That is a big old risk. Like, a big risk. I don't think I'll do that. But, yeah, good round. So, yeah, battle at Tripoli, success. That's that mopped up. Yeah, that's good. That's that kind of insurgency dealt with. Military control fully restored now to the interior. That's good. Out of supplies. Let's get him back to Benghazi forthwith. And we'll keep the infantry brigade in Sulum just for a little longer. Okay, the situation is stabilized. Are you joking me, Meshman? He joined, doesn't really matter too much, but he joined Hüseyin Avni's force. How long would it take him to get back? 2 days, that's fine. Okay. Okay, we'll set Hüseyin Avni to attack. Okay, only 1 division there. Let's just check out supply status. Supplies are getting a bit dicey in the east. I think it's the poor weather. It just means we're struggling to shift supplies between these towns because of, I think, exceptionally harsh weather in Anatolia. That's okay. I think this it's not going to be a sort of a serious situation, but we need to keep an eye on it. Okay, let's have a look. Yeah, that's it. Now or never. We separate the garrison force, obviously. And we set to all-out attack. Yeah, it's as close as it's going to get. God, they're an absolute pain in the arse, the Yemenis. They really are. As I said it right at the beginning, you know, they're not sort of they're not people to take this kind of thing laying down. You know, they're a tough people, really tough people. So we got a national morale point then from that. Yeah, a really convincing victory. 4,000 prisoners on top of the 30,000 casualties. So yeah, 34, probably about 35,000 casualties in total. Looks like the supplies are. Yeah, I mean their access to supplies is pretty good, which is a shame. But not once we take Plevna. Yeah, I think we sit tight. We sit tight, hold at all costs. Because of the weather in Plevna, it's slightly improved. It's no longer snow, it's heavy rain. It will take these boys a bit of time. But the longer we sit tight, we will be besieging the force, albeit in a sort of defensive posture. Yeah, the longer we sit tight here, the better, really. The Russians now do have to absolutely take Sofia to get a source of supply again. And they're in a rough shape. They're going to need to rest, I think. It looks like they've kind of concentrated their forces again, but then we don't know what's happened up here. They might have had forces fall back again. I don't know. Okay. Okay, finished a cattle farm there. That's good. Another uprising. For Christ's sakes. So this force is just being added to continuously, you know. Okay, Ismail Pasha, good job. He's in command of that's him, I think. Yeah, he's in command of one of the cavalry divisions. He's done well. Yeah, a good round. We've got a lot of we've now got a lot of manufactured goods and a decent amount of capital, enough to build an additional manufacturing. What do we make it? 2 manufactured goods, 2 textile shops, 1 shipbuilding plant. Do we have a luxury manufactured goods shop? We do not. I'll revisit that. We'll have a bit of a think about what to build. There's a couple of options there, but yeah, I mean, with another factory, this is going to be, you know, really intensive. It looks like our shipbuilding plant has been completed. That's excellent news. Fortress upgrade is nearing completion, and then we'll have an additional textile shop. This year, even though there's a war happening, it's going to be a period of really intensive industrial development. I think focused around Constantinople, because we've got a big population there anyway that we can kind of tap. 62 at 226. Even though we imported a lot there, we've still got a good trade balance. Really good term. Okay, some stuff to think about there, but that was a good turn. All things being said, we're sitting at the same national morale as Russia. We are noticing that both Austria and France are increasing the size of their armed forces fairly quickly. So we do need to kind of take that in mind. That might just be because of technological developments has increased the combat effectiveness. It's based on combat power. But yeah, I want to keep a bit of an eye on that. We don't want to be completely surpassed, especially Austria. We want to keep a really careful eye on Austria. But yeah, excellent kind of turn. We're in late Feb. I mean, after this, we're going to be heading into March. The weather is sort of going to start improving in the next couple of months. I mean, you know, we did have a late start to the winter or the autumn. That might have a bearing on kind of how wet a spring we have. You know, it may be the case that we have kind of really bleak weather going right into May. If that's the case, that's the case. The good thing here is we're going to set, I think, to defend. No, we're not going to set to defend at all costs. Actually, no, I think we will, because of the Russians, it will take them a few days to march. Yeah, we're going to set to defend at all costs. I feel reasonably confident in our forces here. What have we got? 2 cavalry, 3 army corps. They're not. I mean, they are quite badly disorganised, but it's going to take them a few days to get into kind of Plevna anyway. Yeah, we'll do it. We're set to kind of defend at all costs, because we only really need a fortnight here to kind of get up, again, reorganise our force. Hopefully the weather improves at the very least in northern Bulgaria in the next fortnight. That would accelerate our kind of unit cohesion and recovery, and will provide us really with a basis to kind of assault the fortress of Plevna, which is, I think, going to be on the cards for at the latest late March. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Drill into the reports, have a little look through, and have a think about our next kind of industrial development, and yeah, implement that next term. But yeah, I'll leave here. We'll rejoin in late Feb 1853, which is where we are. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.